here is our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. In a world beset with tension and mistrust, it's important for people to believe in the power of connection and communication and do as such. Yue-Sai Kan, founder of the Yue-Sai cosmetic brand and a television host and producer, is one of them. She has been dedicated to promoting China to the world. Her first TV production, Looking East, created soon after she moved to New York City in the year 1972, was the first of its kind to introduce Asian cultures and customs to an American audience. And this, of course, includes that about China. And the bilingual television series One World Yue-Sai produced and hosted give many Chinese their first glimpse of the outside world in the 1980s. In my earlier interview with Yue-Sai, she shared her stories as the witness of how the world and China learn about each other in the early days and opportunities China's opening up has brought to Chinese entrepreneurs and the world alike. For more, let's take a look at this interview. She started by talking about her latest book and many photos for memories. So you are going to show me
with some books. This is my 10th book.
Oh, wow.
Let me show you some cute pictures, okay? Want to see me when I was a baby?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is when
Yue-Sai?
I was my baby.
How old were you then?
Oh my, probably 1, 2, 1 year old. I was in Guilin.
Yes.
Look how cute I was.
Absolutely. So this is the girl who eventually became the biggest TV star in China.
This one is I have written 9 books.
Oh, right.
So these are the 9 books. But this book is the 10th book. The 10th book.
There's a lot of information, and also I think it's a way of you communicate with the Chinese audience, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a page that is the International Film Festival in Shanghai, and I was the ambassador for 12 years.
Good for you.
I brought a lot of celebrities into it because they wanted to be the international film festival. So I thought, wow, this would be important. So I invited, in my 12 years, I invited 56 very important real VIPs.
I bet they appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Now this is a fun picture because I tore down these buildings and built a new school
in your hometown.
In my hometown in near Guilin.
Wow. Yeah. And the kids are extremely happy over there.
Yeah,
look at that.
Especially I built a dormitory so they didn't have to climb to 3 hours a day to come to school. So they slept in the school. This is the picture of me with the children. And when I was named the ambassador for children.
Oh, right.
I think
ambassador.
I think I was the first Chinese women ambassador at the United Nations.
Very impressive.
These pictures were the original products of Yue-Sai.
I remember the lipsticks.
Yeah.
Congratulations, the 10th book already. Be a pioneer, and you are.
So I want you to see this, okay?
Okay.
Because this just came out. It's called the Peace Artist. So International Peace Artist. This is a stamp collection, and this is a whole book of stamps of me. But the interesting one is this one. It has United Nations on it, which I really think is.
It's so cool. You're on the UN stamps.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Look at that. So Yue-Sai, in a way, it's one TV series, one lipstick, one woman in the decades of China. Amazing.
A lot of work.
A lot of work.
A lot of, it seems like I never stop working.
Tell me about your work now. Yue-Sai, what a pleasure to see you once again in Beijing.
Yes, it's been at least 3.5 years.
Welcome back.
I am so happy to be back. Do you know how wonderful it is to be in Beijing now? The weather is beautiful, and everything is alive. You know, I went to all these restaurants, one better than the other. And I'm telling you, I think my friends, when I talk to them in the States, they're shocked because everybody was thinking that maybe China is really depressed, people are, unhappy or something like that. There's none of that at all. It's so exciting to be here.
Why is there such a distance between what people believed and actually what you can see?
Well, I think that is because the media, a lot of the media in the West is very one-sided. Sometimes it's not even fair. And sometimes I read it and I say, how is it possible? This is not what I understand it to be. And I think that is extremely important to remember. Not everything you read is real. So that's what I have found. And like my perception of Beijing right now is a horrendously cold and miserable place. Nothing like that. It's just exciting to be here.
Yue-Sai, you started your journalistic career by producing one of the most eye-catching, or shall I say eye-opening TV series called Looking East.
In America.
In America. And also you started one later in the 1980s in China called One World, to let the Chinese see the outside world. Thinking about the time then and now, it seems that then the world is at a critical juncture. And now we seem to be another critical juncture.
You are so correct. It's so totally 100% on target. I tell you, when I first started doing Looking East for the American public about Asia, about China, it was like an eye-opener for those people because nobody ever talked about China before, right? And that was new. So you had to start from the beginning, literally. And then when I started producing the program of One World on CCTV, it was the first program about the outside world for our Chinese audience, right? That's how you really met me, right? When you did.
Absolutely.
Right? So it was, every image I presented to the audience was probably the first image of that country ever, correct? Somehow, in a strange kind of way, this is 2023. I feel like the same thing happens again. It's like, what on earth is happening? Nobody seems to know what is happening in China. And of course, I blame it on the pandemic. Of course, the last 3 years, even I myself have not been back. So I just think that there's a lot of misunderstanding. And don't you notice that unless you see things face to face, you really don't know it? You just read.
Exactly.
And if things are not really positive and all negative, and you do not get the alternative perspective, you're really in trouble. The problem is that you only have one-sided idea of something. So I feel as if coming back here is like, wow, this is a place nobody knows about. I think I would love everybody to come here and experience for herself or himself.
Absolutely. In retrospect, I guess it is still very meaningful if we try to understand what you did, why you did it, and how you did it, and why it succeeded. Now, with this critical juncture, as we talked about, Yue-Sai, looking at what you did decades ago, back in the 1970s and 80s, why you did it?
If I don't do it, someone else should do it. So I would like to use the word mission. So somehow it gives meaning to my life that I wanted to do this. You really think that producing for CCTV, your station, in those days was easy?
Not at all.
No, it was because it was the first of everything. It was really not easy, and we went to 16 countries to shoot. So that was really hard. Money was a problem, and languages, when you go to some place like Egypt in those years,
Your understanding about China, you're a Chinese American. You were born in China, but very young age, already moved to America, grew up there, educated there. So your understanding about China back in the 1970s and 80s was also a gradual process.
Later on, all my work is so involved with China. So even to me, when I was writing my autobiography, even to me, it was like a sort of a big surprise. How is it possible that someone who's naive, I was so naive about China, to have gotten the opportunity to learn so much about China, and that I would, that I get my life so involved.
It's a gradual discovery process.
Yes. And when I started looking east, I remember I was studying really, really hard, because how am I going to do programs about China or interviewing someone from China? Those days, learning about China in the United States was extremely difficult. There were not a lot of places. First of all, you don't have a cell phone, right? No. So you don't really have, you can go to the library, of course, to read some books about China. Of course, I interview a lot of people who just went to China, for example. So I can learn something about China. You really can't learn about China very easily. There's a couple of organizations that actually had some very lousy books about China, but
But it's so far away from the real China, isn't it, in a way?
Well, but not only that, China was just not open. China was closed. I'm so happy China now is open, and I really do wish and pray that China will be even more open, because it is good for the world, it's good for us, good for everybody, right? So to be more, to have people know more about China is a very good thing. In those days, it was a very difficult thing to do.
When you were talking to the real Chinese at that time, when you were coming to China to film the TV series and talk to the real Chinese, why was it like for you?
It was a shock to me, to think that somebody made $53 a year, And when I first came to China, it was interesting to realize that people were still getting tickets to go get food and tickets with
coupons.
Right? Yeah. Coupons, yeah.
In order to get their groceries.
I remember, as an American Chinese, I remember using 外汇券.
Yeah.
The foreign exchange dollars. There was not even dollars, right? It was really very, very, very interesting. I must say, Tian Wei, I thank God every day that I had the opportunity to be the witness to all these extraordinary changes. And how is it possible that my program, One World, came on CCTV? They were very smart. Once they decided to open China, right? Once they decided to do this, they said, okay, how are we going to open China? The Chinese knew nothing about the outside world, and the outside world knew nothing about China. How? How are we going to do this? They said to themselves, how? They said, TV. TV, this camera, very important. TV station, very important. They used television to educate the mass public. Wow, how great. The idea was fantastic, right? I remember I did 3 pilot shows for the minister at that time. And I said, I had to show them some pilot shows. And I was very careful. I was wearing very simple clothes, like a black top and,
Very conservative.
Very conservative, with no makeup and all that. And I was very concerned because everyone on CCTV was very conservative. And they still, I remember they were still wearing braids, can you imagine this? So here I was doing programs in America. I didn't look like that. But I was very concerned, very, very sensitive to that. So I did 3. And the minister, after he watched it, he says, I am very sure, Yue-Sai, that your programs will be very, very popular. But is this how you look when you do your TV shows in America? I said, no.
Where is the glamorous Yue-Sai?
I said, no, but I'm just, no. He said, then in that case, I want you to produce the series the way you produce your show in America. That only shows me one thing. They were determined to open. Do you know how gutsy that really is, if you think about it? Because if TV journalists were wearing such conservative clothes, the rest of the world was wearing such conservative clothes.
The rest of the country.
Yeah. And here I was asked to do it just like America. If you see the old shows that I did, I wore all the colors, I wore jewelry, I wore makeup.
Absolutely, it was beautiful.
He told me to do it. If he hadn't told me to do that, I probably wouldn't do it, right? Because I was sensitive, but I had to know what they really wanted. I find it to be extraordinary that I happen to have an opportunity to be a witness and also a participant in the Chinese open door policy.
Absolutely.
It's like, I didn't plan it. It happened.
You walked into history.
Yeah, well, it happened,
Now, it's a different stage, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Of history. China becomes the second largest economy in the world. The Chinese diplomacy very proactive, and China has been talking in a way that everybody would listen. But of course, the context is also different. And the way people look at China over the past 10 to 15 years, for example, has also been evolving. So at this moment, what kind of China are you discovering?
But if you're talking about this time of the history of China, we're at a crossroad. It's a very, very, actually a very, very important crossroad. Diplomatically speaking, people are paying a lot of attention to us because economically speaking, China is very, very powerful today. But again, my concern is the negativity against China, which is sometimes not, in my opinion, not grounded, and it's not true. And that's what irks me. I'm a Libra. I find it to be unfair, just not fair. I'm not saying that China is perfect. Is there any country that is perfect, or any society for that matter that is perfect? None at all. But to read so much disconnect, so much negativity, it's just not fair.
Have journalism at this critical juncture become more propaganda than it ever was?
This is a very interesting question. I live in America, so I have to address America. American press is supposed to be free. And I don't find it so free because it's very one-sided.
What does that mean for journalism? Is this going to be the end of it?
Well, I hope
if
not.
Everything is being painted black and white, and looking at with lenses.
That's the reason why you need an alternative perspective.
And it seems that the platforms, as we know today, media is really about which platform you're on and whether you are being seen by the rest of the world. The platforms seem to be more and more divided, either quote unquote East versus the West, or Chinese versus the US. So how do you...
No. Even in the US, there's such amazing discrepancies. It's so divided. When you watch one station and then you watch the same news on the other station, it's like you're watching two different news. That is the problem.
What do you think are the most important qualities of people who try to establish or build a bridge between cultures or among cultures?
Truthful. I think that people can tell if you're just trying to toot your own horn. I think that people can tell if you're not truthful. I think truthfulness is extremely important. I mean, when you watch American journalism, reading American articles, you could tell that they're totally not true, right? From the Chinese perspective, I don't think that we should be so nervous about people saying anything negative about us, because nobody is perfect. Can a country be perfect? Absolutely not, right? So if you are not really totally perfect and you portray yourself as perfectly perfect, you are not telling the truth, and people can tell it. So I think that if I was to produce a series about China, I would not say just only positive about China. It's not possible. right? I mean, people would think that, you know, what is this girl doing, you know? It's just like you know, you're producing a program. Somebody on your show has to be able to say something a little bit negative, right? I mean, it's just normal and natural. But you, on the other hand, can promote things in a very, very nice way, truthfully, because there are a lot of wonderful things in this country, right? So,
and a lot of common ground between this country and many others.
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Yue-Sai, what a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.